Okay, it looks like I am live, but yeah, maybe if you just can tell me if you can hear me well, that would just help. John Norris. So the title of the live stream today is Painful Monetary and Financial Transition Will Bring Economic Revival. And the reason, yeah, I'm trying to be positive because I think sometimes we can come across negative about everything. We need to look at the bright side of things as well, especially during Easter. I thought it's important that we look at that, and we'll wait until the top of the hour. We can chat here. You can ask questions as we wait for people to come on. Graham Hobbs, good evening, Graham. Happy Easter to you as well. Ben Gray, Lightning for Thee is here. Pablo Pina, Passover, yeah. The sound is okay. Yeah, I just wanted a confirmation that you could hear me, that because sometimes you come on, you don't know, but anyway. John Norris says, when we are prepared, we can be a little positive. Yes, and I think I've also, having grown up in Brazil and seen things there, the crises there have been really bad, inflation and military dictatorship and everything. It's not the end of the world, I think, but as you say, if you are prepared and you know what's happening, it's better. If you're not, if you have no clue of what's happening, and unfortunately, that's the majority of the people, they will be shocked. And I think they're already getting shocked. We're already seeing a lot of symptoms of the collapse, economic collapse, I would say. Jillian B, good evening, Jillian. Happy Easter to you too. Deborah Ilya from Alabama says, I love you, Monaco 64. Thank you. Thank you very much. Carlos, hello, 2022. Happy Easter. Yeah, Caroline Wilder says, as long as transition is to sound money, it will be worth it all. Well, yeah, that's my hope, and it's possible because when you have had such a flawed system for so long, the crisis, I think, will be really bad, and it might end up being that we have to go, even the people who took us into this flawed system might have to change change their their views, because without sound money you can't get, in my opinion, a sound society, sound economy, because the currency needs to be backed on sound money, because the currency is it's the blood circulating in the modern economy. It's the blood that circulates, and you don't have good blood, that body, that economy collapses. And I think that's where we're in right now. Chemain's Model Health says, happy Easter from Alberta. Happy Easter. Yeah, hi Peter B. Yeah, all is well. I had a really nice Easter. We went out for lunch. Billy is doing well as well. Gianfranco Bergagna says, the collapse is here since centuries. We will face a resurrection, not a collapse. Uh, over here, is Elon Musk a bad guy or a good guy? Are you rooting for or against him? I don't really know what to think about Elon Musk. I think he's got his feet on both. He's on the fence, I think. Miles says Peter Schiff is hinting at a possible Black Monday. Is that Black Monday tomorrow or maybe a Black Monday like crash? I think tomorrow, most of the European markets, London included, are still shut. The US is open. Don't know about Canada. Thank you, Sarah Brown. Happy Easter to you too. Anton Spoji from Bratislava, Slovakia. Shane O'Donnell, thank you. Happy Easter to you as well. Alan Zibelman says he smells a rat with Elon Musk. One of the things I find a little bit suspicious is that he took government bailout money after the 08 crisis. I think the Obama administration pumped a lot of money into Tesla Motors. So, and he does a lot of work, I guess, for NASA as well with the rockets. So he's quite closely connected to, I would say, to the deep state. He is originally from South Africa, but his mother is Canadian from Manitoba. So he's kind of South African and Canadian. He's a clever guy, you have to admit. But anyway, I don't know what to say anymore. That's all I know. Philip Simonak says, Elon, the man who wants to microchip implant your brain. Looter92 says it's cold in Canada. Buffett and the rest of them have their hands out there. Yeah, music lover forever. I kind of agree with what you're saying there. He's like a switch hitter, so to speak, if you want to call it that. I don't pin any hopes on Elon Musk. I think we need to pin our hopes on ourselves. You know, that's we're the only ones who can help ourselves. Deborah Ilya says, I've learned so much from you. I'm 69 years old and no one told me what you have. God bless you. Oh, thank you. And God bless you too. So we're almost there. 9 o'clock, London. Again, yeah, painful monetary and financial transition will bring economic revival. And I don't mean this is going to happen a week or a month after, you know, the crisis culminates. And I think we will know when that happens. Don't know when, but it's like the old, it's like, you know, for example, I'll give an analogy of a fraternity party. You have a big party, you party a lot, you drink, and and then the next day you have a really bad hangover, but the day after everything is fine and you get on. Maybe that's not a good analogy, but well, another one, for example, the wars that we've had. For example, Germany was basically totally destroyed after World War II. But look at the German economic miracle in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So, you know, from the depths of a crisis and collapse, or whatever you want to say, I think there's opportunity for things to improve. Whether we'll get sound money or not, I don't know. But individually, we can always try to do the best for ourselves and be our own banker, so to speak. Carlos says the 10-year yield is nearing 3%. Yeah, on Friday, I think we spiked almost more than like 13 basis points. Yeah, we're around 283 or 284. And yeah, I think it's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the bond market, because I think the bond market is the most important market for all financial markets because it determines the price of credit or money. And that's been rising very quickly, going from 1.5% at the beginning of this year, the 10-year yield, to almost 3 already. Well, even before the end of April, is quite a significant move. And I know that because I worked in the bond markets for over 20 years, government bond markets. And that kind of move, I think the last time we saw that was in 1994. There wasn't a huge crisis in 1994, but now things are different. So Ty Fuller, thank you for your super chat. What do you think of the World Economic Forum role in the transition? They obviously already have a plan. We will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, I mean, I think I was one of the first ones to look into the World Economic Forum after the pandemic started. And I have articles that I wrote in June of 2020 warning about the World Economic Forum. I personally think they're not going to succeed with their great reset. There will be a reset in the financial sphere, but it won't be conducted by them. Yeah, I think that their plan will fail because it's too draconian, too centralized. And we know that centralization has never worked. And like Rafi Farber, who comes on my live stream once in a while, said it's the analogy is the Tower of Babel. That's the analogy. You try to control the world like from one point, and it always fails. So I don't think they will be able to. I think they're going to fail miserably. Gavin Hillebold, how was the golf yesterday? Actually, Gavin, I played Friday because it was a holiday, Good Friday, and some of my friends put my name down, and I played a swindle, and I played really well Friday. I won the swindle. I won about 23 pounds, and I shot 3 over par, which was a good score for me. So I was level par in the back 9. So it was a very good golf. I hadn't played like that for a while. Enough of my golf, though. Belly Dance Raven says God's reset coming in 2031. Someone asked about Gonzalo Lira, what I thought about Gonzalo Lira earlier. I did see that. It's funny because I had read some of the stuff he wrote probably back in 2010, 2011 on Zero Hedge. And then about a month ago, he became very popular again on YouTube because he happens to be in Ukraine. And someone sent me a link of one of his live streams or videos, and I watched it, and I was trying to think because that name sounded familiar, but I think he's legitimate. Yeah, I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's for real, and he's a good source of information if you want to know what's going on in the Ukraine. MW351 rumors flying again that Biden is on the way out. He may take a medical resignation. Yeah, that's the, I think the 25th Amendment, isn't it? I think. Rafael Miranda, I hope all is well. I would like to hear your take on the repercussions countries as Canada, Brazil, New Zealand, their currencies. Yeah, I mean, the Brazilian currency has been the best performing G20 currency this year. And I think countries like Canada, Brazil, Australia as well. I'm not sure too much about New Zealand with the move to hard assets should continue to do quite well. Of course, there's always the political aspect as well, the central banking policy. But in the end of the day, fiat currencies and all these currencies are fiat currencies are not going to do as well as hard assets, but they could become a place where you could find some stability. I think the way to be exposed to those countries is not through their currencies, but through some of the, the miners. Scott 49, can I ask about bonds? Is it true that they are national debt, or are there different types? Yeah, basically bonds are a loan, and it can be to governments, to corporations, to local governments. Yeah, and it's a securitized loan. What does that securitized loan mean? It means that it's a loan that you issue in the primary market, like on Wall Street, and then investors buy it, and then that loan can be traded back and forth. While a normal loan, I'll lend you $100, and it's between you and I. It's not in the market. So basically, a bond is a loan, but it's securitized, and when the government borrows, it has the debt. That's what the national debt is, and then you have corporations borrowing. They have their own debt, but that's not the national debt. That's private debt. So that's what bonds are, and they have different maturities. These loans, they can be for just 1 week, or 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 1 year. Some countries have borrowed for 100 years. The U.S. Treasury, the longest they borrow for is 30 years. So that's what a bond is. MW351 says Gonzalo is on Duran frequently. Yeah, I have listened to the Duran. They're good. Normal Norm says the Duran has mentioned talking with you at some point. I have been in contact with them, and with Alex. I've sent him a link to my channel. He wanted to see what my channel is all about. He hasn't replied back to me yet, so I'm waiting now. AGL says more Canadians are buying gold and silver. Norbert says every Sunday I drive to the bus and listen to the show, and even the passengers already got used to it. Which show is that, Norbert? Is that the Duran or mine? Carlos Garcia, happy Easter to you as well. Rafael Miranda, you're welcome. Janada. John Doe, hi John Doe. Happy Easter, Big Mike. Oh, the other thing that's been happening here, for example, I took my car out. My wife drives a lot more than I do, because I live very near the golf course. I can walk there, but I went to the petrol station. We call it petrol station in the UK. You call it gas station in the US. And all the cheaper fuel, unleaded or diesel, they were all out of the cheaper fuel. So I filled the tank, and I filled all the way. We had just half left. So I filled all the way, and it cost £1.94 per liter. And I converted that into gallons and dollars. And that's over $11 a gallon for diesel. And I told my wife that we need to keep the tank now half full all the time. Prior to 6 months or a year ago, we always never had more than half a tank of diesel in our car, but I have a feeling that things could get worse, not only in fuel wise, but also supply wise with food. I mean, we're lucky. I am in London, but I'm outside, quite far out of the center, and we are near the countryside. So yeah, I think it's important to keep enough fuel so you can drive somewhere, maybe to a farm to buy supplies and things like that. But we went to a garden center yesterday, and they also had like a food store. It was a huge, really nice garden center, and they seem to have everything. So things are still running quite well, but I have a feeling that things could change. Arif Murataj, hello to you. Ralph Potts, happy Easter. Glenn Godfrey says, thank you for your information. Listen to you every morning now. Great insight to start the day. Oh, you're welcome. Riqua, France repatriated all their gold. Yeah, I saw that article on Zero Hedge. It was from Nieuwendijk, his name. He's a Dutch analyst. Yeah, and according to him, they had still about, I don't know, 220 tons, probably in London. And the French don't publicize what they do, but he worked out that looking at their website, all their gold now is in Paris. And there used to be only, well, they had 91% of their gold prior to 2016 in Paris, and now 100% of it is in Paris. That's right. Cozy Fantuto, do you think the ruble will continue to appreciate against other fiat currencies, considering Russia's low external debt? Yeah, I think we broke through the dollar broke below 80 a week or two ago. Now it's risen again above 80. And I think it's going to stay stuck around that 80 level for now. But longer term, I see the ruble appreciating versus the dollar. So I see that dollar ruble rate going down. The Coin Critic, didn't one of the rubles collapse yesterday? I didn't know there was more than one ruble, so I thought there was just a Russian ruble. The drawback, Lynette Zhang said on her channel that in the gold confiscation of 33 rare coins were exempt from this. If they do it again, confiscation, would that same apply? Yeah, I know the story about that. The Secretary of the Treasury, I think his name was John Wooden. He was a coin collector, so he put that in the executive order. So it's still there. So I think it would apply unless they change and they strip out that exemption. I don't think they will, but I don't think they will confiscate gold again, because back in 1933, gold was still very important in terms of popularity, because it was the money people used. The $20 gold piece or or a gold eagle, that was used as money and currency, even though people used a lot of dollar bills or gold certificates. Yeah, nowadays, we gold proponents or gold bugs or sound money proponents are a very small minority. So but you never know. But yeah, that would definitely apply. That's why a lot of people buy pre-1933 basically coins, US coins. Miles, thank you for your super chat. Some states will be sold off to pay debt. Some will merge together. Some states will issue their own currency with gold backs. America will be broken, the great starvation. Well, You probably heard miles of the fourth turning. It's a good book. Just Google fourth turning. I think it's Neil Howe and Strauss who wrote that book. And they basically study cycles. And going back to revolutionary America, so going back to like England, and they say that every 80 years there's a big change. And why 80 years? Well, because that's the span of a lifetime. And people who are young, they forget what happened 80 years ago, so things repeat. And they forecast that, well, basically they had a fourth turning, and one of the fourth turnings was like in the 1780s, so revolutionary war. Then you add 80 years, you got the 1860-61 Civil War. Then you add another 80 years, 1940-41, and you get World War II. And you add 80 years and you get 2021, 2022, right? Right smack in the middle of a fourth turning. And it usually involves a big change. So you could be right. You could be right. Gurvandeep Singh, thank you for your super chat. I'm heavily invested in physical silver. Considering the current geopolitical situation, is silver a good hedge against inflation? Price has been stagnant lately. Interesting that you asked that, because I actually think silver is ready to, it has stagnated since the summer of 2020. Don't forget though, in 2020, in March, silver dropped to $12 and then it almost tripled. It went to $30 by the summer. Yes, it has been consolidating, but I think silver will probably, before the end of the year, pick up and outperform gold and all other commodities. So I'm basically holding on to my silver. I'm adding on to silver, and I'm buying silver miners as well. I think they will do well. So that's what I think. It's up to you to decide, of course. No, nice to see you here. No says smash the like buttons. Give Mara and Billy a big thumbs up. Alan Ross says, Rafi says there's 50-year cycle. Yeah, that's the Jubilee. Some people think as well that, we're in the 50th year since Nixon took the dollar off gold. So yeah, it could, and it's kind of matching the move away from the dollar by countries like Russia and maybe even China. Especially since the beginning, Lightning for the, especially since the beginning of Cerveza says, do you think those who are stacking precious metals have grown greatly? I think maybe, the silver, interest in silver has picked up, especially since the beginning of 2021 and the silver squeeze movement. And also, gold, I think the central banks and sovereign countries have been buying gold. And even after 08, I think since 08, central bank buying has been pretty big. And that's because central banks realized with the great financial crisis of 08 that they needed more gold. They had the least gold since like the 60s. So they've been loading up. And I think very wealthy individuals also. Pablo Pina, Hecla Mining, I've got that stock. Miguel de Murillo, is it wrong to have 90% silver with the swastika on it? Well, maybe in Germany you might be careful, have to be careful with that, because I think it's a crime. But you know, gold will be dropping short term. Kevin Kelly. Was the gold silver ratio once at 8-1? No, I don't think it has been at 8-1 in the last few hundred years. I think the lowest it's been is like 14, 15-1. But some people argue that it should be 8 or 7-1 because there's only 8 times more silver being mined than gold. Anders Orsted, do you believe the ties between China and the Arab countries will get stronger as the crisis in Ukraine continues? China and Arab countries. Yeah, I think so, because and not just China and the Arab countries, but also any other country that's not part of NATO. I think they realize that they need to diversify. They might not like move away from the NATO Western countries, in terms of trade and commerce, totally. But I think they need to diversify, because they've seen that the West can basically steal your reserves. Like Russia, they've had $400 billion worth of reserves in dollars, euros, and sterling, basically stolen from the West. So yeah, I think China and Arab countries will definitely try to build a stronger relationship, and also those two countries or areas of the world will try to build relationships with Russia. So yeah. JMC, do you think I should move my mortgage onto a fixed rate for a tracker? Or are they just pretending to raise rates lower again? Oh yeah, that's a good question, because I wanted to talk about mortgage rates. Mortgage rates in the US have gone from just above 3%, the 30-year, to above 5% this year. And I think they're going to keep going up, actually. That's until the Fed reverses their policy. And you could be right. They could be just talking tough. They've only raised by 25, but I don't think so. I think they're gonna go. They're gonna try to go for tightening. So, I mean, I have been asked this question before. Maybe if you're not too sure, and this is not advice, but it's what I would do, put half of it fixed, and the other half, if you can take two mortgages, fix part of it and then put the other part on a tracker. I've had here in the UK, when I had a mortgage, I had something like that set up like that. So the best thing, of course, would be to be able to get rid of your mortgage. That's a different story. The drawback, much is being made of governments pushing us towards crypto CBDCs. How do you see crypto working with gold? Some say Bitcoin will be crypto gold store. I'm not sure Bitcoin, you can compare Bitcoin to gold, but what you could have is the blockchain technology for transacting in gold. And but when governments talk about digital currencies, it's got nothing to do with decentralization that Bitcoin and other cryptos are supposed to have. It's more for control. Yeah, it's an interesting subject, but I don't think we really know what's going to happen in terms of the currency. All I know is that in terms of a store of value, I think gold and silver are going to do well um, over the next year or even more, because they're going to have to keep. Well, they're trying to pare back the stimulus, monetary stimulus, but I don't think that will work, and they'll have to go back to printing and zero rates, and that's going to put a rocket up the price of gold, silver, and all other commodities. Hmm. Average Homer, where did you get your glasses? I'm going to order a new pair from Zenny. Huh. I got a local, you know, local shop here where I live. Linklater, I think in the UK it's called. I had the eye test and I got the glasses there. Spanish John says Bitcoin does act like gold in terms of volatility and stability. I think I beg to differ with that. Volatility, I mean, that's the last thing that stability is not something Bitcoin has. It's more what gold has, I would say. So, and this year, Bitcoin has actually followed the stock market, especially the Nasdaq lower, while gold and the miners, have been going up. So, Magic Torch, what are your thoughts about people who are renting? I don't think that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, renting. Even though some would argue that if here in the UK, they say you have to get on the property ladder, and it has been a good strategy. If you bought a home 20 years ago, it's been a good way to protect your savings. But right now, with interest rates and bond prices dropping and yields going up, I'm not too sure about the real estate market. But I think longer term, it's always good to have your own home, your own property. You just have to make sure that you don't leverage yourself too much. So, for example, uh, if I was renting today and had enough savings to buy a home, I would buy it, because even if prices dropped, you still have your home. And yeah, I think that's an important thing to have long term. James Hafford, if ratio is 20 to 1, silver should be 100 right now. That's right. Well, that would be the case, yeah, but it's not. Yeah. Evola's sunglasses, what percentage of the population own gold? Well, monetary gold, most people have, well, a lot of people have jewelry, but that, I guess you could say a big percentage own some gold through jewelry, but investment gold, I would say, is a very small percentage. I think if you look at, total assets, investable assets, it's only like 1 to 2% of all investable assets. But in terms of percentage of people, it's probably very low. Carlos says each G20 government holds gold. No? Question mark. No, I don't think the Canadian central bank has any gold, but all the other ones probably do. Grandy says buy VIX call options to make ridiculous returns when the market crashes. Well, I think you've got it wrong there, Grandy. It's put options you want to buy. Oh, VIX, volatility. Sorry, VIX. Yeah. Yeah, volatility goes up when the market crashes. If you buy VIX calls, yeah, you should make money on that. I remember though in March 2020, I had some VIX calls and I did well in the beginning before it really crashed. But at one point, I couldn't, my broker kind of froze you couldn't go in and deal. So you got to be careful when there's a lot of instability in the markets and a lot of volatility. You might not be able to get out of your options. PC Gone Mad, happy Easter to you as well. Thank you. I wanted to share something here today, an article, and it's about the bond markets. And then we'll go back to chatting and I'll go back to answering questions. This is what's concerning here. Inflation surge slashes 11 trillion from world's negative yielding debt. Central banks adopt hawkish move to end large-scale asset purchases and raise interest rates. So this chart here, like we got up to all, and these were mostly European government bonds and also Japanese government bonds. And you had almost 20 trillion, about 18 trillion of government bonds that had nominal negative yields. So if you bought a bond and a 10-year, let's say German government bond with a yield of minus 0.7, it meant that you were holding that, and in 10 years time, you'd lose 0.7% of your money. And usually when you lend money to someone, you have to get more back. And this didn't make any sense. But the reason why this happened is because central banks and the ECB still has rates at negative, but they've also been doing QE, but now they're saying that they're going to stop doing QE. And so the market is front running, the sales by the central bank, because after they stop QE, the next step will be for them to sell the bonds. But the reason they've been buying, even though they have negative yields, is that a lot of bonds, especially the long-term bonds, when their prices go up and the yields become negative, their prices go up parabolically. So we've had like a bubble in bond prices. So the fact that this is now reversing is very serious. And now they're almost down to zero bonds that are negatively yielding. And what that means to the economy is that it's going to be a lot more expensive to finance everything, to refinance everything. And there's going to be a lot of maybe investors who could lose their shirt, because if this continues, you could see a crash in bond prices. So I thought that was important to talk about. And I think this is why, I think we are in very turbulent monetary and financial, climate right now. And I do think things are not going to get better. But as I said, I had the title of the video, yes, eventually things will, we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. 750 watching now. Push the like button. Yeah. Let's have a look here. Yeah, the CPI, for example, someone's talking about inflation as well. Here, CM. Um, well, it's supposedly now 8%, but if you calculate it like John Williams of Shadow Stats, it's more like 17%. And even in the 70s, the highest inflation they had, or CPI, was 13.5%. And I think it's just starting. You know, the rising prices or the high CPI or inflation is just beginning. A lot of people think it's peaking, but I don't think so. It's the same people that thought it was going to be transitory are now saying that it's peaking. One cut above, Forbes released an interview today with Simon Mikhailovich talking about gold. Yeah, I've listened to that guy before. He's quite a good, I think he's been on YouTube with someone. I thought it was interesting being released on Easter Sunday. Yeah. Gareth asks, do you think gold could be manipulated down by US banks again in June if the ruble disconnects from gold? Yeah, it's not only the US banks that manipulate gold, it's also the Bank of England is heavily involved, the bullion banks in London. Anything is possible, but I have a feeling, you know, that one day that even the bullion banks are going to go long gold. So who knows? Uh, I think what we need to realize is that this is just giving us a more of a chance. It's like a gift to maybe buy relatively cheap gold. Because why would you want to hold fiat currency? It's going to go to zero eventually. It will take a while, but I think it's accelerating. And you're still getting a negative return in the bank if you discount, you know, if you if you account for the rate of inflation, which is probably 10%, and you're getting, you know, 1, 2, or maybe 3% now in the 20-year, you're still getting a negative return. Chris Conman, thank you for your super chat. Says, happy Easter, Mario. If the central banks end up repricing gold, say to 30,000, from 30,000 down to 300, end up repricing gold, say from 30,000 down to 300, what will the prospects look like for gold miners going towards forward then? Thanks. Not, do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean from, you mean they take off some zeros, like 2 zeros off the currency? I think they would do that, like they've done in many countries like Brazil. When there's a currency collapse, they issue a new currency and they lop off. They'll say that, you know, the new 1,000 of the old one will be one new one. You would have to look at relative values. So with the let's say if gold is repriced down to 3, but why would they reprice it to 300? That would be heavily deflationary. But even if they did, it's all relative. So if let's say gold is at 30,000, they reprice it for some reason down to 300. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's usually the other way around. When there's a crisis and a collapse, they reprice it up. But let's say the Dow at that time would be 300 as well. So it's all relative, I would say. So that's the way to look at it, I think. Old mechanic, are you saying that people who bought bonds at a small negative yield are still making money because inflation is high? No, what I'm saying is that If you buy a bond that's yielding, let's say, minus 0.1, and then the price goes up and the yield goes down to like minus 0.5, they'll be making money uh, on the principal. But when that turns and it becomes positive, the yield, the price is going to drop through the roof, through the floor. I'm sorry, not through the roof, and they'll be losing money. And it will be very quick, because if you buy a 20-year bond and the price goes negative, or the yield goes negative, the price goes up very quickly, but it also goes down very quickly. So yeah, I think most of the people who are still holding those bonds that are negative yielding, and they're mostly Japanese bonds now, are still okay. But I think a lot of people investors who were holding all these European government bonds that were negative yielding, they've lost a lot of money, and they could still lose a lot of money if yields start even moving even faster, becoming even more positive. Andrew Watson joining live stream late. Benoit Guillou, but then again, there isn't just interest rates. Jugular, rampant inflation, they can also lock down and limit purchases of goods to slow down monetary velocity. I don't think monetary velocity matters, and we've seen that it doesn't. There are people like Jim Rickards, who always mentioned money velocity. He said there wouldn't be any inflation because velocity was down to zero. So I don't think, I think that could make things even worse, Benoit, because you lock everyone down, you stop people working, you stop people shipping goods and services, and people at home can still buy things. And I think it would make it worse if they lock people down. And prices don't go up. Hyperinflation doesn't happen when economic activity is strong. It's when the economy goes down the tubes. And what happens? People lose confidence in the currency. So you could lock people down, and people could say, I don't want this currency anymore. And they could start buying things, get real things. They could get rid of their currency. So I'm not too sure I agree with you on that. It's my view, though. Joker Alpha, with Elon tender offer to Twitter, would government or SEC block private entities from making a deal? Sometimes I think governments or the U.S. Treasury block foreign investors, maybe from strategic businesses, but I don't see why they would block, Elon Musk from buying Twitter, an investor. I think he's dual nationality, Canadian and American. I'm not sure, but I don't see a reason why they would do it. And if they do, then we know it's political. Gerard Roth, thoughts on TLT bounce? Well, they have rebounded lately, but at the end of last week, trading, actually the bond yields went up quite sharply, and we finished near the highs of the year. And the TLT is a proxy for long-term treasury bonds. So I think there could be a tradable bounce in the TLT maybe in May, but the long-term prospects don't look good for TLT, which is the ETF that mirrors like long-term treasuries, treasury price. Lawrence Sawicki says silver is stupidly cheap. I agree. I agree. There's a lot. I I think, yeah, it's worth the speculation. Um, Even though holding physical silver is money, but what do I mean by speculation? Well, maybe the miners. Harry Chu, thoughts about TLT being heavily shorted by institutional shorts. Is this manipulation causing 10-year yields to rise? Well, it would be manipulation if they're conspiring with each other, like fund managers, but I don't think they are. I think it's because they're shorting it because there's a lot of inflation, and yeah, they might be doing doing that as a hedge against their long positions of real treasuries. They're using that as a hedge as well. I don't think it's manipulation. Benoit says, I wasn't saying lockdowns were effective. Rather, they apparently used lockdown thinking slowed down monetary velocity. Well, it didn't work, did it? Because we've had massive price rises since the since the COVID thing started. Maybe not in the beginning, but afterwards. Uh, Such media. What about inflation-linked gilts? Well, if you want to finance the UK government, go ahead. And the thing about these linked bonds, inflation-linked bonds, if you think the government uh, publishes the correct statistics for inflation because they link these gilts to the rate published by the government or the ONS, then go ahead. Um, it's a mug's game, I think. Index gilts or the tips, which is the U.S. Treasury equivalent. I personally stick to gold and silver, and the other thing as well, I don't want to finance the UK government right now because I don't approve of a lot of things they're doing, especially fiscally and maybe even geopolitically. What do you think of platinum? Someone asked here. Well, it is a precious. Who is it? RPHB. It is a precious metals, but it's not a monetary, purely monetary metal. But I think it will do well as well. And the move from, I believe we're moving. There's going to be a big flow into hard assets, and platinum would be part of it. So, but I don't own any platinum. Andrew McClure, what do you see as the best hedge when investing in precious metals future? Is short bonds in yen or long dollar index? Well, I wouldn't be putting any money to work in futures, gold or silver futures. And why? Well, because I don't think that's the point of gold and silver. Point of gold and silver is taking your money out of the banking system and buying physical. Uh, that's the first. You've asked a few questions there. As for dollar index, I think that's a waste of time because it's basically you're trading against the euro because it's almost 60% euro. Uh, and gold has gone from $1,000 to almost 2,000 right now since 08 when the dollar index was around 70 and it's now at 100. So they've both gone up together. So it's not a good hedge. Yeah, futures is not a good, dollar index. It's not a good hedge. They've been trading together. Carlos Garcia, what happens tomorrow? All countries dollarize, no more pesos. What what happened is tomorrow all countries dollarize, no more pesos, reals, bolivars. Who benefit the most? Strong dollar. I don't really understand what you are asking there. Countries dollarizing. I don't. I think it's going the other way. Countries are de-dollarizing. I wouldn't. I don't think those countries will want to get even more involved in dollars. If anything, countries like Brazil have been buying a lot of gold. Last year, they increased their reserves by 60%, gold reserves. JMC says, thanks for and the Fed mug. It's my favorite. Oh, great. Yeah, I think it's one of the best sellers. The other thing, I'm having someone make new designs for the Teespring store. I'm waiting. It's going to take a while, but hopefully put some new life into the mugs and t-shirts. I'll let you guys know when the new designs come out. I am crypto. What's the end game for the debt-based system? What can they actually do? Well, I think the reason for the debt-based system is that it allows a very small group at the top, you know, the bankers, the whatever, you know, the elite, to basically steal almost every, you know, good asset in the world. And how do they do that? Well, they borrow for nothing on the backs of taxpayers, right? That's why we have the huge national debt, and then they pull the plug, and they own everything, and everyone else is like dirt poor. That's the end game, and that's why you need to have something outside the system, real tangible wealth. And gold and silver are not the only things, but they are the monetary and fairly liquid things. Carlos Yaboni, do you agree with the thesis that the Fed will raise rates until something reams, then they will reverse course? Yeah, I do. I do. You know, the Fed, you know, at least historically, the last 20 years, every time there's trouble, they reverse things. You saw what happened in 2020. You know, 2019, actually, they started doing, they called it not QE. When the repo market exploded in September, they reversed everything. Carlos Garcia, Argentina's candidates talking about adopting US dollar. Who would benefit the most? Well, Argentina did that in the 90s. I think it was President Menem, Carlos Menem. I wouldn't trust them. You know, Lebanon was dollarized basically. And what they do is people buy dollars and they put it in the banks and they think they have dollars and that it's as good as the peso or whatever. And then from one day to the other, they'll take all your dollars and you have nothing left. I wouldn't trust, you know, Argentinian politicians or any politician talking about doing this. Belly Dance Arabia, wondering where the gold silver ratio will eventually go. Well, some people look at it as a spread as well. And I think in the last 50 years, I think it was 20 or last 30 years, 2011, I think. You look at the percentage, like right now, I think the silver price is 1.3% of the gold price. And in the last few bull markets in silver, it's gone to 3% of the silver price or the gold price, and even 5%. But even if silver goes to 3% of the gold price, and gold goes, let's say, to $8,000 an ounce, which is possible. 3% of 8,000 is 240. So yeah, you can look at it as a ratio or a spread, sorry, as well. Thomas Moran, is there any silver or gold purchases that you would recommend that you could use on a daily basis? Just bought some silver spoons, and I love that I can use them whilst being, well, that's good. I mean, yeah, there you go. I mean, silver spoons or, utensils. Is there anything else? Well, I've got some silver trophies, golf trophies. They can be used as a decoration. What else? I've got like a silver purse for sovereigns. You can't, but I think jewelry, I guess, is something, a silver necklace. You can wear it. Joker Alpha, what would it take to end the Fed? Government officials to dissolve the establishment? Now, end the Fed, it would take an act of Congress, basically. The 16th Amendment, I think, was or the Federal Reserve Act. You have to abolish the Federal Reserve Act. And I guess things would have to be so bad, and the public would maybe wake up and listen to Ron Paul. It's a political thing, really. Chris Conman, thank you for your super chat again. When the market does collapse, will gold fall too? At what point will it turn around and then head higher? Well, Chris Conman, this year, the NASDAQ is down 14%, and gold and silver and the miners are higher. Maybe if there's a crash of 20% in a day, maybe gold and silver and the miners might go down a little bit, but I think I wouldn't sell them. Angels to apples. Wouldn't it make sense in hyperinflationary times to amass debt and use it to purchase real assets? Yeah, I mean, there is this argument. The only problem is that in hyperinflationary times, and I've had a guy from Lebanon last year, and I interviewed him. What happens in a hyperinflation or currency collapse is that there's no currency. It's the currency disappears, and if you have debt services to make, debt repayments, and you don't have any currency to pay that debt, you might have some currency, but you need to survive and you need to buy food. You could lose your property. That's the only thing. When you have that in the currency collapse, is very dangerous. I know what you mean, because in a hyperinflation, the currency is destroyed, the debt is destroyed, but it's in the run up to that, like right now, there's a lot of people struggling with their bills. So maybe a little bit of that, but not a huge amount. Personally, that's what I would say. Okay. I think it's time for me to go. I'll just answer another question or two. So, Southern Cal freelance, how do we demand a full accountability of nation state gold holdings? Audit Fort Knox. Yeah. I mean, that hasn't been done in a long time. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your questions, your super chats, and for being here. And if any of you are new to the channel, think about subscribing. Yeah, and also make sure you share my videos if you like them and you think other people will like them. And I wish you a happy Easter for those of you who are still on that time zone. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.